It says live now.
Okay, I think we're ready to open the meeting.
Okay. I'm going to call to order the June 15th, 2020 meeting of the Fairport Industrial Development Agency. And I will ask for a roll call vote. Rob Gentner.
Here.
Donna Stefano.
Here.
Leslie White.
Here.
Ken Rohr.
Here.
Ken is joining us by phone, and Kevin Clark is here. So the first order of business is the approval of the May 18th, 2020 IDA minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, comments, corrections on those minutes? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? That carries. Next, we'll move on to financial reports. Resolution 2020-6, authorizing payment of the IDA bills.
Having reviewed them, I move payment of the bills.
I'll second that.
Any questions regarding any of those bills for IDA?
If you recall, we had some maturing CDs, maturing investments that the portfolio manager recommended would be better off investing in CDs. And so we have that new Bank of Castile CD.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Next item are the cash and investment reports of the IDA. Martha, anything you want to call out to us there?
I don't think so, except one of the things I continue to look at is that we're going to have another 50,000 in maturing June 30 and another 50 July 31. So we may have, that's within the investment portfolio. And we also have that $100,000 on July 8th. Those can be utilized to move the monies over pursuant to the resolution at last month's meeting, moving funds to the LDC in response to COVID.
Correct.
Other than that, no.
All right. And we're still carrying a number of things that are in here for just placeholder items for projects we're going to be working on. Is there any update on that? Has anything started happening with the economic development study? Have there been any meetings?
No, no.
Things are
That
on
would be
hold.
done in conjunction with the comp plan.
Correct.
And I believe that's on pause. Although actually, I've been invited to join a stakeholder meeting for the town of Parenton comp plan, which is interesting. So that's happening in a couple weeks. And so, you know, maybe as things develop and we figure out how open or closed we're going to be, hopefully the village comp plan will get on board soon as well.
It's not by the same firm by chance, is it?
No.
Okay. Okay. So any other questions from anyone regarding the cash and investments? Okay, we'll move on to the financial statements.
And what you see there is again that new format where we have the year-to-date actuals, the
Yep.
budget to date, the variance, and then the annual budget. You'll notice we also, we've got a subtotal there before the investment portfolio performance, which is the unrealized gains and losses. But that balance reflects the, we had a significant outflow of funds this for the Southwest Bank at $150,000. So if we take that back in, we're just right about on budget.
Yep.
And if you haven't been down to the Southwest Bank, you might want to check it out. They're finally putting in the sidewalks, the pavers. It's really starting to look like something. And you can see where the granite timeline is going to go. John and I went and picked, John Reddington and I got some of the repurposed canal stones that were saved by the village years ago. And those will be part of the walk, in the bioswale area where you'll have an opportunity to, rest or whatever. And we're going to actually, John liked a lot of the rocks, so we're going to bring them down and put them there's a couple he's going to include at the end of on the Tiberio side, again, for additional seating at the end of it. So it's really going to look great. And as soon as that telephone pole goes, it's going to be, the views are going to be amazing. So good stuff there.
That's great.
Yeah, it's exciting progress.
Kenny, any other discussion or comments on the financial statement? Okay. Move on to old business. Is there any other old business for the IDA, none showing on our agendas?
I did not have any, but I just left it here in case anyone else had some follow-up.
You gave us a bicentennial and the economic development study. So, all right. We'll go into the butterfly garden, and our agendas were complete with photos.
Well, I wanted to try to put them all in one place because I knew I had sent that to you earlier under a separate cover. So just wanted to talk about the butterfly garden in April. We did John Reddington, the landscape architect, and his wife was also a landscape architect. We met them out there in April to do a bit of spring cleanup. In early June, Tom Molansky, the engineer for the project, visited the site and grabbed some photos. And then shortly thereafter, I stopped out to check on the butterfly garden and found that it had been damaged. So John, and actually Chair Clark and his wife were out there as well. And we discussed the amount of damage, possibly in the $10,000 to $12,000 range. I have reached out to Paul Sorbello, the nurseryman that put the garden in, and asked him if he'd come out and give us an estimate to repair it and to do the ongoing maintenance for it. And he hopes to come out Monday or Tuesday next week, or no, tomorrow. It's already this week, tomorrow. And so we can get an idea. But I understand Chairman Clark's had a discussion with the village manager with regard to the property.
Yeah, I talked to Brian twice last week. The first time it was kind of overwhelmed coming off a huge village board meeting and also a lot of the other things that were going on in the village at that time. But I did bring it up with him that this is, just that it's, asked him if he had seen that. He had not. He wasn't aware of any of this that had gone on. He was going to talk with Paul Feely and get back to me. I talked with him again on Friday, and he had talked to Paul. Really no explanation for what had happened other than he said that, he kept emphasizing that they would take care of it. But without us knowing, we need to know from Wayside what what you do to take care of it. My question is, are some of those plantings going to come back, or do we have to replace everything? You know, they left some strain. They left, as you can see in the picture, they did leave large chunks of stuff, and it would appear to us as we were all looking at it that if anything was less than 18 inches, regardless of what it was, they took it out. And it looks like a lot of it was not just weed eated, but actually plants removed. Brian attributed that, he thought, to summer help without any guidance on doing that. And this is really unfortunate because at the time that this was planted and turned over to the village, Wayside did give came out and did a walkthrough with at least Paul and I think other staff to show them what is what, how it is maintained, what needs to be done, and the like. Martha then, after that, had put together an actual handbook. Is that correct, Martha?
Right.
A handbook to give to DPW, as they requested that. And so they have that, as well as having been trained on what's supposed to happen there. One of the other deficiencies that John Reddington called out the day that we were down there was it was severely in need of watering too. And I shared that with Brian, and he said they would get somebody out there with the village's water tank and set up to get that water. I have not been back there since Thursday or whatever day, Wednesday, I'm not even sure what day it is. I have not been back there since then, so I don't know if that has in fact happened or not. So I guess our next step is waiting to hear from Wayside as to what really has to be done there to bring it back the way that it's supposed to be. Martha has floated the idea of, is this something that we should be not even have the village DPW put their hands on at all in the future, and leave that to a contractor like a Wayside to do the maintenance of that. You know, there would be a cost associated with that, and the village would not be in a position to pay for that. So it would be an IDA thing. So that was floated out there too. Anything
Do
you
we
wanna
have an
add,
idea
Martha?
of what that would cost, Kevin, at this point? Or is that what we're exploring?
On the maintenance side of it, Rob?
Yeah.
No, we do not. We do not. You know, it's not, I wouldn't suspect that it is a weekly kind of thing. You know,
Oh,
I mean,
no.
it's not like a lawn mowing or anything, you know, but maybe once a month they come out and there and do some weeding. I don't know. I've seen Martha volunteered to do it. Kathy and I have offered as well to come down, if they're going to do a volunteer thing, I would be happy to do stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe we all have shifts, or we go out together as a group and take it on. I mean, that's a thought. Another thought too is, I'm wondering if this is an expensive lesson. And certainly, it sounds like it was an honest mistake, but where it wouldn't happen again, based on.
I think it happened to a lesser degree last year as well, didn't it, Martha?
A little bit, but I also had a similar situation up at the North Main parking lot where we put in
Oh, that's what I'm thinking
landscaping,
of. That's what I'm thinking of.
and it was taken out. So I think for the magnitude of our investment here, and as well as the popularity of that, and it really is quite a gem, I think, for the village. I think, we would want to look at getting that professional maintenance estimate anyhow, because I don't think it needs constant maintenance. I think it needs that spring cleanup. It needs the fall cleanup, maybe, another time early in the spring, as it is starting to grow. But I think if we get some more information, we can figure out what we want to do. But I think it might be worth the investment in, in maintaining it, our carving it out of the license agreement. And I'm sure the village would be happy for us to take that on. The North Main parking lot is just grasses, and there's some a little bit of, landscaping there, but, so that's not to the extent of this. So, but I also suggested to John, as we are thinking about the bioswale at the Southwest Bank, that we need to take into account the capabilities that are present on the village staff and maybe design a little bit more toward that. So that we don't have a situation like where we give them too much to handle. So they're always
Okay,
informed.
did we
They
get
always, pardon?
Go ahead.
They are always part of the design. They're always aware of it. I mean, we have multiple meetings as these things go through. There's never a surprise that these things show up. So I think maybe just in the execution of the maintenance of it, it's, where we run into a little bit of trouble. So we have to think about that as we design our projects. And then, how do we protect the current investment that we have? So I think we'll know more when Paul is able to give us an idea.
Yeah, and I think that you described it, or somebody did when we were talking, to say that's the difference between a DPW and a Parks Department.
That was John Reddington, right?
And certainly the village is not in a position to have a Parks Department.
Right.
And they're trained to use big equipment, and they're trained to do heavy lifting kind of stuff, and not so much this finesse gardening. So, I get it, I understand it, but to the point, we have a big investment, and we need to protect that investment in one way or another. There was some pretty solid assurances from the village or what. But next steps is we'll get that information from Wayside, and then I plan to go, and Village Hall is opening this week, I'm told, and
Right.
I would plan on going and meeting with Brian, and hopefully Martha would be able to join us.
Great. Oh, yeah.
Kind of talk through this
Mm-hmm.
and have an update for us all at our next month's meeting.
Yep.
Any
Okay.
other questions, comments regarding that? Okay. Any other new business for IDA?
Nothing significant, except I did reach out to Corning Incorporated in light of COVID and how the impact on the economy and so forth. I reached out to them. As you know, they were going to put on a 28,000 square foot addition at O'Connor Road. And I just wanted to make sure that that project goes forward, and that if they needed IDA assistance to ensure that the project would move forward, that we could talk about that. Because they was able to connect with a woman, and they talked about, if it'll go forward and what will the scale and scope be in light of current economy. So I've made a good connection there, and I'll stay in touch with them as they move forward. And that's it for me for IDA.
Okay. Any board members have anything IDA hanging out there like an update on, or?
No.
Okay.
Just a thought from me, Kevin, and everyone for that matter. I attended a session in Potter Park last week talking about the Black experience in Fairport, and it was a pretty powerful session. Got to hear a lot from folks that either spent time in Fairport schools or were folks that were from Fairport and grew up here. And one of my takeaways is from that session was I wanted to make sure we had a conversation, and it's not something we need to take a deep dive into right now, but I wanted to put it on everybody's radar. I think having a conversation, me personally, I think a lot about what we do. I always kind of have the economic development piece in mind as a focus. And I think that's, the community piece to this is important to speak to, I think, right now. And I wanted to make sure that maybe it's a session that we have, a discussion, a group conversation that we have as a board to ensure that we're identifying any barriers there may be to diversity that we have, that we can play a role in remedying. I don't have a fully baked idea in my brain right now, but I think it's important discussion to have. And we're in roles as board members here where we can help drive an important conversation and further an important conversation. And so maybe it starts just with an interest from other board members to have a separate conversation, a separate meeting to get together and brainstorm what we can do. I would certainly be an interested participant in that conversation.
Rob, I really like that idea, and thanks for bringing that up. I'm part of a diversity and I'm equity. Don't think it's called inclusion, but equity council that the Fairport School District has convened. They started convening it about 6 months ago, and we were maybe 4 meetings into the council, unfortunately. But we've had some really good discussions just around how people understand those concepts. And I think that might be a good starting point in how we understand that, and then how it applies to the community and how it applies maybe to economic drivers. There's people who did comment that they didn't think that Fairport was economically attractive to diverse communities. And I tried to probe a little bit about that, but there is some sentiment around the economics of Fairport as well. So I do think there's issues there, or there's issues that can be explored in a discussion. So thumbs up for me on that.
Great.
I think it's a good idea for us to talk about it and to have that at front of mind to help us influence decisions.
Yeah, I think it's a worthwhile discussion as well. And you hit it by saying, do we have any barriers there that we're not really tuned into? You know, they could be there and we don't even recognize it. So yeah, so I think it's just kind of worth revisiting what we do, how we do things, and for that purpose in mind. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. I don't think we had our annual planning meeting this year. Is that correct?
Right.
Kind of missed out on that. So I don't know, maybe when things settle down, we have a little retreat that is a combination planning meeting and, have this be certainly an agenda topic, put a little framework together to get us all thinking, and, we can walk through some things. I think that'd be great. So.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Ken, I totally agree with everything that's been said. I want to be part of the group. I would point out that maybe, as opposed to other organizations like ours, maybe we have a step up, because we do have the Section 8 housing program, and that speaks to diversity in some manner, shape, or form. So it's a good discussion to have, but we're not starting from the bottom anyways.
Yeah, good point. Okay. Anything else, IDA? No action needs to be taken on anything tonight. Okay. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That meeting is adjourned. And we are going to urban renewal, correct?
Correct.
So with that, I will call the June 15th, 2020 meeting of the Fairport Urban Renewal Agency to order and ask for a roll call vote. Rob Gentner.
Here.
Leslie White.
Here.
Donna Stefano.
Here.
Ken Rohr.
Here.
And Kevin Clark is here. So We will move into, approval of the May 18th, 2020 meeting minutes. I have a motion.
So moved.
A second.
Second?
Okay, is there comments or corrections or discussion regarding those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. We'll move right into the financial report, starting with resolution 2020-6, authorizing payment of the URA bills.
Having reviewed them, I move payment of the URA bills.
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions regarding any of those bills that we have in front of us? Whoops. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Resolution 2020-6, authorizing payment of the Section 8 bills.
Having reviewed them, I move payment of the Section 8 bills.
I'll second that.
Any questions regarding those bills or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Can move on to cash balances, cash and investment reports. Anything you want to call out there, Martha, for us?
What I want to call out is that I have received an inquiry from one of our current existing borrowers who wishes to gauge our interest in funding his newest project to about the tune of about $250,000. It's a multi-million-dollar project on Perrin Street. And I want to show you that we do have sufficient cash balances. One of the things we started working on, back in 2016 or 17 was the management contract, where the funds for the IDA and the LDC, the IDA and LDC are managed by personnel that are part of the URA, and the URA receives a fee to do that. So, for example, December of 2018, total cash within the URA was $249,000, but you can see now we're at $432,000. And so because of that, we would be able to, I think, very comfortably finance $250,000 out of this portfolio if we so choose to.
And this is an existing URA borrower?
Correct.
Okay.
We do not have a formal application. He's just making inquiries about if we're interested. But you can see if, a couple of years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yep. I'm not sure how deep we go into this, Ed.
Okay.
Before going into executive?
I mean, just kind of general comments as to Martha's trying to get a gauge from the board on feelings on it, and I'm just not sure
Well,
much of that is discussed in the live meeting.
I think we can discuss whether or not we have a certain amount of funds. We've received an inquiry about someone who wants to perhaps borrow as much as $250,000 of our funds. However, we should talk about, well, does that limit us to doing other things? Within the URA, We do have a set aside for $50,000 for residentials, but those are income qualified and we haven't gotten a lot of those requests. The interest income from the current loan portfolio sufficiently funds the front porch grant. The management contact tracks remain in place with the IDA and the LDC. So the URA has a continuous source of income from those. So I think I'm just trying to get an idea about how the board feels about it. Whether or not you'd want to cast your lot with one loan, or do you prefer to be more liquid to see what else might come up? But typically I think of the URA is when we are doing real estate within the village versus the LDC where you can get into more working or not working capital, but equipment. So it's an appropriate use of the funds, being that it's a real estate project, but.
And residential real estate.
And residential, very good. Thank you, Kevin. Yes. So it's just a discussion.
Okay.
I'm-
My only reservation and thought on that is that our entire portfolio is with one developer, and this would just add to that. And in the thoughts of diversifying and having monies available to encourage or release a new program that might have some incentive or something like that. I don't know if that's the best use of our funds. He is a great borrower, but it's.
No, concentration of credit is always a risk. Absolutely. Although, we are secured
I like
by,
that
well,
term.
Pardon?
I like that term. I don't.
It's a banker's term.
Yeah, you can tell I'm
So
not.
I think that's a very valid point.
It's Ken. I guess I'd also be a little concerned about having all of our eggs in one basket. Terrific person, terrific organization. I just don't know if we want to go all in.
If the number were lower, would we be more interested in it? Just a thought.
That's a good point. I guess maybe I'd look at it a little differently.
Yeah, so would I.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm meeting with and I can explore that with them. But these are valid points, concentration of credit and liquidity. So it's a good discussion.
Or as Ken said, in non-banking terms, eggs all in one basket.
Yeah.
It is a pretty basket, though.
Good. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
All right. So where does that take us? What did we just get off of?
So we're at cash in the Section 8 program.
Yep.
And you can see that the admin account reflects the deposit from HUD for the incremental admin funds. And that was about $74,880, I believe. And now Jennifer's been, one of the things with regard to COVID, those funds is they have to be used for COVID related expenses. So through those funds, we've now been able to purchase equipment so that we can work from home in all aspects, printers, monitors, that type of thing. Laptops are, go back and forth, but we also are purchased some cloud software. We've got, and in the office, we had one shared computer that was on its last legs. So we're now all going to have our own printers. Again, these all funded through that incredible deposit from HUD. We won't come anywhere near to spending that. It would be impossible to, although, yeah, it'd be impossible to spend that, I think, really. It also covers payroll during this time, which is curious, and that's wonderful. So, but it's really been helpful. We're, updating everything. It was a great impetus to, just push us forward again, technology wise. So Jen's very excited about it, very excited. So that's it for cash.
All right. P&Ls. And
You'll see on the Section 8 HAPs, when you get to those, we're going a little bit into reserves, and this will relate a little bit to the Section 8 housing report that Jen put together. So you can see on that page 10, I think it is, our HAP income versus expenditures were, underwater slightly, but that's all under control by design. We have reserves. Locally, we have reserves at HUD as well to cover that. So not to be alarmed.
okay. Anything else on any of the financials for anyone? Loan status report. They did not take advantage, the 3 borrowings did not take advantage of the pause that was offered by us. And
Correct.
continue to make timely payments, and everything is current.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Section 8.
Right. So what you see, while our numbers are down, you see where the lease up percentage is 87.7%. If you go to the bottom of the page, you can see that our total percentage of funding utilized, that's supposed to be 101%. So as you can imagine, as incomes went down, our HAPs went up. And so, even though we have less units, we're paying out more per unit. And so we're spending into our reserves. And what the big number that I looked at, like on the second page, we're net 0, 2 went in, 2 went out. But you can see the volume of work that gets done during the month. The initial interviews and research, 65 of those. Those numbers are fantastic. Sheila Stockslater has requested if she could continue to work from home. She has a child at home, and she's found that she works best starting at 5 in the morning, and that gives her the afternoon with her child. And I'm totally on board with that. She's, we've got her all set up equipment wise, and she's a producer, so I have no issues with that at all. And Paul has just started re-inspecting. He went out Friday and today with the PPE and so forth. I've had multiple times spoken with him, wanted to say, are you sure you're safe? You don't have to go back out. Do you feel comfortable? Those types of things. He's totally fine with that. So he was anxious to get back out and do what he loves to do. So, and Jen is, spent a lot of her time on the IT stuff and on the upgrades. We're gonna, for example, things like our QuickBooks now will talk to the Happy software. Before, they never spoke. And just this past month, we had free $2 checks from 2017 go through the account that had been sitting, somehow it had never been reconciled. So those will be reconciled now. And we have our bookkeeper, Gina, and she's fabulous on that. So there's been a bit of an opportunity for Jen to, step away. Since we've hired Paul, she's gotten that opportunity to get away from the client caseload and really do the executive admin things that she needs to do. So it's working very well. So.
Any idea what we're talking about with Sheila, how long she might be working from home?
I don't know. I think I would imagine might be through the summer, depending on what the childcare situation is. And also when we reopen to the public. There may be that she comes in during those times that we're open to the public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does Paul qualify for regular testing as an essential employee? Do you know if
I
that's,
do not know, but I know because of he's had a recent procedure, he had to have a COVID test. So he's had one and he's negative. I had one because of my procedure coming up Wednesday and I'm negative. That I think he could go back and get another. He's got some more procedures set up, so I'm sure he'll be tested regularly. But
I was just wondering, just from a protective standpoint, like the hairdressers, they're required to get it every 2 weeks. If who's on a similar schedule of being
he's
required.
not, but I'll explore that with him, definitely. He feels very comfortable and he's got the face shield and the gloves and that type of thing. So, and the mask, obviously, so.
Are there guidelines from some of the professional organizations that do these types of inspections that we could at least look and see what is the, protocol, even though it's short-lived thus far for that?
That would be from HUD. And I know Jennifer's researched those quite a bit. But I could get some more information on that because we've had discussions all along and I know she's right on top of it, but we can get some more info about the HUD guidelines. Actually, HUD, they were ready to let him go back a lot earlier. So we don't want to be the leaders on getting back out. So yeah, but I can check. But now he's swamped through the end of June. He doesn't have any, because we are behind, yeah, he's back out doing re-inspections for people he saw, earlier in the year even, and I guess it was quite a day today. So yeah, I'll get some more info on that. Just to make sure. Mm-hmm.
It's Ken. It looks to me like we're still recording. Is that okay?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you, though. Thanks for the reminder.
I thought we were supposed to be off after IDA.
After
No.
LDC.
No,
Okay.
no, because we still have to, we're in public. We're still a public meeting. And because of the executive order, you have to live stream them. Right, Ed? Did I get that right?
That's correct. Once we go back to all being able to sit in the same room together, only the IDA meeting has to be live streamed.
Okay. Any old business for urban renewal?
I did not have any. I left it on in case someone had something outstanding.
Okay. New business, you have one agenda item and I have a couple of things as well. So why don't you tell us about what's happening with the office?
Well, the Village Hall reopened today to the public. They require, if the public's available, the electric office and the clerk's office are open to the public. If you need another department within Village Hall, you have to make an appointment. They have one of the Village Hall employees, it's apparently rotating throughout the staff there. It takes a 2-hour shift at the door to greet people and send them on their ways, ensure they're wearing masks, that type of thing. Paul and Jen and I were in randomly today. We're open for employees. We will be signing our health evaluations every day and following that reopening protocol template, safety template that I passed around last month. I took an online webinar with Underberg and Kessler with regard to employee liability, employer liability for employees. And my goal is to make sure everyone stays safe and well. And that's why I'm especially, I catch Paul when Jen's not around and ask him, are you comfortable? Do you want to go out? That type of thing. Just so we're double checking, making sure he knows that if he doesn't feel safe, he doesn't have to go out. Jennifer's had COVID tests because of her, because of the situation at Village Hall, and she's been negative, so that's good. And we're all taking it very seriously. When we leave the office area, we wear masks in the Village Hall. You can enter only from the back end of the building. You have to exit only from the front. We have adequate cleaning supplies. And as I said, we're cutting down on the shared equipment. So it'll be fine. We'll see. It's a little disruptive now because we're moving back to the office. So we'll open to the public when we need to. HUD requires us to be open at some level to the public. We don't know when that'll be. And it will certainly initially be by appointment only, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Ken Rohr has looked into Martha's review, and she is due for a review as she's coming up on an anniversary date. And so part of that anniversary date brings her latest and last step increase. Is that right, Martha?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we want to
No.
go? Oh, okay.
I'm just going to make some general statements.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, so Ken has been working on that part of it. We would like to be able to have the board do a review with Martha at our July meeting. And so if everybody could kind of put some thoughts together and be prepared to discuss that, obviously it's an executive session item that we would do. But if you have some thoughts, and just so we can do that with her in July. Her step increase should go into effect on the anniversary date. So is that good with everybody? Good. All right. The other part.
Sounds good, Kevin.
The other part as it relates to Martha is I think it's time now to resume the search or intensify the search for an assistant.
Oh, yeah.
Martha. Need to have that. You've gotten quite a few months here solo, so we would like to get that filled. Has anything, it has not been the time to do it, but I just don't know if you had been doing any kind of search or anything, for someone to work as an administrative assistant or executive assistant, sorry.
I have not, but it's my top priority when I go back. And I think it's been very helpful to, especially during this time when I had to do all of those admin tasks myself to understand the position better. I actually may want to think about making it, initially I had someone that was 37.5 or 30 hours a week. And then I went down to 20 with our last admin. I am looking at upgrading that possibly, looking for someone with more of a loan administration skills set. I think with our loan portfolio, there's a lot more that we could and should be doing. I'd look to that person to be more actively marketing the Front Porch Grant Program. I think that's a great fun program, but I'm hesitant, right now to postcard a lot about it because the volume, should the volume come in at a certain, there's stuff you have to do to put it together. So, and to monitor it and so forth. So I think we could be more active in that program. And then, we have some further discussions later in the LDC about other programs we might want to do. So absolutely, I appreciate your comments, Kevin, that it's the only yellow sticky on my to-do board right now. So not that I don't have anything else to do, but I'm trying to focus on that one.
Careful, your review's coming up.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. That's all I had for urban renewal. Anyone else? No. Okay. I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? And that passes. So with that, I will now call the June 15th, 2020 meeting of the Fairport Local Development Corporation to order and ask for a roll call. Rob Gentner,
Here.
Donna Stefano,
Here.
Ken Rohr,
Here.
Leslie White. You
Oh,
muted?
we lost her audio.
I can see her, so that means she's here. And Kevin Clark is here. All right, first business. Let me just change screens here for a minute. Oh, darn. Sorry. Okay. Approval of the May 18th, 2020 LDC minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
A second.
Comments, corrections, discussion? Martha, on the part on new business with your red comments of
Oh,
regarding the business recovery program discussion, my notes do not indicate any action taken on that.
I
It
attached
does
them.
not need to be part of the.
Yes,
the
thank you.
record.
That's the copy I sent off to Ed, and I attached the wrong folder.
Yep.
So thank you for that.
Okay. All in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Go to resolution 2020-6, authorizing payment of the LDC bills.
Having reviewed them, I move payment of the bills.
I'll second.
Any discussion or questions regarding any of those bills? So, why is the Jeff Harder loan going to Underberg Kessler?
Ed, you took care of dispersing the funds, right, Ed?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that all happened, but I just,
Yeah, we actually dispersed funds today, so you'll be getting
Okay.
a check back, Martha, and
Okay.
to Macedon. So
all right. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? That carries, or maybe we already voted on that. Cash balance reports for LDC.
Right. One of the things, okay, so we have funded our $20,000 commitment to the train viewing platform. The $10,000 that still remains is for the public art. For the Iron Smoke loan commitment, we've advanced all of our funds. They're going to be ordering their last piece of equipment, and actually Monroe County will be making the disbursement on that one, and we'll actually be paid down about $15,000 on our outstandings, so that we're co-equal on those things. We did fund the loan for the parking lot, and then we still do have a small balance in the lift bridge fund, and I've got some more detail later in the loan package.
Okay. And then the financial statements, anything there? All right. Let's move right into new business, and which is really further discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. It will be discussion of the business survey results and our thoughts on recovery assistance and the like. So
Great.
kind of a follow-up from our last month's.
Right. So I to keep it all in one package, and I updated it since you last saw it. This is the survey that we sent out. We sent it out from OSED as well, and the merchants and partnership circulated information about it as well. And we did get a fair amount of replies from them. So you can see that it's a good cross section of businesses. This reflects 55. I think we're up to 58 now because the chamber has also done a recent push on this. And you can see the responses to the survey. In particular, was, as we discussed earlier, 75 or question 10, I believe it is, about question 9. Do you feel you have adequate resources to reopen? And a very good portion of the respondents indicated that they did. But I think a lot of that had to do with many of them getting the PPP loan or the EIDL loan through the SBA or perhaps the Monroe County loan. So that was terrific. And then you can see on question 10, what type of assistance would be most helpful. Number one answer was information on maximizing the PPP forgiveness. And so I reached out to ProNexus. I think I copied you all in on the invitation
Yes.
to the webinar. I wanted a webinar that was very merchant level focused, because these are not the people that have an accounting department or a CPA or whatever working for them. So I wanted a very merchant level focus, and one that offered significant amount of time for people to get their questions answered personally. That's what a lot of them were looking for, help me with this. And so that invitation went out last Friday, that it's going to be an invitation only webinar next Monday morning at, I think it's 9, because I tried to get it open before the merchants open. So hopefully that will be of some assistance to some of the local merchants. The second one, penalty-free extensions on their rent and all of that stuff. Those weren't things we really could help with, but you can see the smattering of other responses were a kind of across the board, social media training, succession planning, how to keep my customers safe, those types of things. And that kind of leads me to a proposal of the grants that I included in the package. But before we leave the survey, did you all have any questions or insights? I included the comments. I think you saw people do not want that. They're not interested in that. And, and they say that loud and clear, and rightfully so. So you can see I kind of updated our discussion from last month with regard to credit enhancement. But from a survey perspective, is there information that you'd was interesting to you or
Well, I have
insightful or something we might have missed?
There's an awful lot of people outside the village. This is not strictly, I mean, and I understand the distribution means, but do you have, I didn't go through because I don't even know all those businesses, but do we know how many of the village businesses responded and what that might be as a percentage of businesses that there are? This does give us a flavor for the general local economy, but it is not Fairport centric. So, do you have any breakdowns like that?
Well, my business list is about 150.
Okay.
And I did not parse it down to who responded to the survey, village-wise or other. We had a total of 58 responses. I'd have to look, but I'd say most of them were village, but I can certainly parse that out.
Yeah, I have that same question related to question 9, because there are 13 businesses that said they don't, and I'm curious if there's a significant proportion of those who might be village businesses. So
I can focus on those. Mhm.
Yeah, I do know with SurveyMonkey, you can kind of remove certain respondents from the analysis.
Yes, which is another thing I'm learning about.
Yeah, I just.
My admin will do it next time. But we're looking at the 10 that responded no to question 9. Yep, very valid.
13, so, yeah.
I mean, I can get that. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, similarly, Martha, that was my thought in my brain too, was this is, besides the first 2 line items related to question 10, there is this smattering, right, of sort of unique needs that folks have identified that would be most beneficial to them.
Yep.
But if we narrow that down to Fairport Village responses, and there's still some businesses that would require some social media training, for example, my thought was maybe we could put together some sort of a package, some sort of an offering, through some of our partners that we've worked with for the lift bridge, perhaps. Maybe they'd be willing to dedicate or donate 20 minutes of time on a webinar that if they're, if all 3 of those respondents that said we need social media help are Fairport Village businesses, maybe then that is something that we could at least explore. And I guess I would say the same thing for all of the other responses. Not that we try to tackle each individual need for those, with all of those kind of broad scoping needs, but if we identify through the Fairport list alone, where there's some pockets of need that we can help with, maybe we explore that.
Sure.
But just to be sure, if we were to start a program that was being administered by the LDC, we would be restricted to village businesses only, correct, Ed?
That would be that could be our choice. Because the bylaws of the LDC does allow adjacent, is it, or near something? There's language in there that you could in the next town over, for example. But it's complete if we wanted to.
The idea didn't have that flexibility.
That wasn't specific to bonds?
Nope.
No, it was any activity for the LDC.
Because the only LDC thing that we've done outside of village, if I remember correctly, is the bond for that we did for
Rochester
Presbyterian or whatever it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I can parse that out a little more and try to identify commonalities among the village businesses, in particular, the 10 who answered no on question 9.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions or comments on the survey itself?
Really helpful to see.
It was really eye-opening, really was. And now that I know SurveyMonkey more, we can do more.
Okay. It was a new business. So is the loan portfolio, is that for the end of the meeting?
Yes.
That's the way you have that set up?
Yep.
Okay.
Do we want
Right.
to talk about those grants, the
Yeah,
update on?
let's go through with a couple of the stuff we talked about last month, and then you've added some stuff. And so why don't you walk through what we've all seen, have received them, and
Okay,
had the time
so
to take a look at it. We got it this afternoon.
what did you get this afternoon?
No, that came over the weekend, I think.
Oh, okay. It was Saturday. So last month, we talked a little bit about ideas of trying to provide assistance to the villages. We talked about reimbursable grants. We had talked a little bit about partnering with, member organizations. And really, that didn't quite come together. We talked about, I was exploring credit enhancement and to make sure that credit was available. But that idea started percolating before we got the survey responses back. But Evans Bank, who recently acquired Fairport Savings, they were very, very interested in trying to work with us. But we all agree now that the appetite is not there for the credit part of it. And so we won't be moving forward on that. One of the things that I really spend a lot of time thinking about is, what is our goals with a grant program? Because it's easy to give away money, but does it make a difference? Does it build towards the future? Or does it just, we get to check a box? So when I think about the grants, one of the things that I was exploring was how other areas were doing it. Leslie had given me some information on what the town of Greece was doing. Thank you, Leslie. And then I found a program in Rochester, Minnesota, and it's a Keep It Local grant, which in their program, because they have a wider service area, you match up with local businesses and they provide grants across the board for whatever you need to address COVID and to get you forward thinking about how this will help you become more resilient and move forward into the future. So I kind of pieced it all together here. And really what I think it could be a great program because it's, again, to Donna Stefano's point, is that it empowers the businesses to figure out what they need to do to move forward. We're not saying we're going to give you social media or we're going to give you PPE or we're going to do this. It's you tell us what you think you need to respond to this crisis and to provide a better foundation for your business in the future. So my thought would be that it would be listed within the village. There'd be a certain dollar amount of grant that we can talk about. And then if they happen to partner with a village business to do that, if somebody needs a plumbing thing and partners with Alberti, maybe we give them a little bit extra grant to make that happen. It's something we commonly did down at the county. If you used county or local vendors, you got an enhanced incentive. So this would be not cut and dry, yay or nay. It would be these applications would be evaluated and considered on a rolling basis, a little like Kevin, like a CFA kind of thing. They make an application. The application wouldn't be onerous. I included the list of materials, information that we'd request, and then we'd consider it. For example, I talked with a small business today who has suffered greatly from the lift bridge project and then compounded by COVID. And they've got a young nephew who's trying to help them out, and he's talking about he needs help. He wants to enhance their online presence. He wants to enhance their SEO, that type of thing. Great, let's help them. I liked where I ended up on this, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
Remind me again, if this is a grant program,
Yes,
we're doing it as a grant, not as a loan.
yes,
Why do we need tax returns?
because part of the criteria is the viability of the business. We expect that, I would expect that these grants would be competitive. That they're people will want.
So in essence, it is weighted against the most needy of the people.
It informs our decisions so that we expend the funds where we think the best return will be.
It scares me a little.
Then we would
went into
just,
this and started talking about this. I envisioned this as a program that is going to help businesses stay in business. To come in and say, well, this is a solid business, so we can give them more money so they can be a better business. That isn't really, we have loan programs and things like that. I'm kind of thinking about the people that are the most needy.
well, I would say, for example, I did send over earlier today some financial information and someone. I think when you look at it, if you imagine when you have that type of information, you can decide. I don't want to say it. So what criteria, okay, how about this? What criteria would you use to allocate the funds?
I would base it on primarily the need and what they're going to do to help their business. What kind of things are necessary for them to help their business survive? I'm thinking more about survival as opposed to betterment of their business. Improving their business. There's plenty of other programs out there to help people grow their businesses. I'm thinking of this more in a survival mode. So it's going to be need and what are we talking about doing to improve your business, to help you stay in business.
I kind of had the same reaction. I mean, I like the sustain. I like the idea of sustain. You have sustainability in there. I would maybe say adapt. Businesses that would adapt.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, I do have a concern. We did hear about a handful of businesses that suddenly announced over this weekend that they were, in the greater Rochester area that were going out of business. That seemed quite, well, I don't know, it seemed quite sudden announcement. I would be worried about a business that was pretty certain that they were going down the road of closure in the next 60 days and taking a grant from us. But we honestly have we don't really have a way to probably gauge the honesty of an application in that way. But if it's about adapting so they can sustain, I don't, and I also don't think growth is realistic and honestly in this environment over the next year.
Is this one of the checks is by being a reimbursable grant? If somebody is, definitely hanging on by the thread, it doesn't even have enough cash or availability to make these purchases that are, upfront them, to be reimbursed. That's that's kind of a check and balance there too.
But that does leave out those that have the greatest need.
It separates ones from that are, to address your point, of ones that regardless of what we do or what their tax base and stuff, they're not going to manage, they're not going to survive. They may be the 10 that don't have enough money to open up. So what can they do to look at creatively?
Martha, did you happen to see with the Rochester, Minnesota example, were there criteria listed as far as what factors went into those considerations?
There is a rubric that they would score everybody on. But you can see in the evaluation process, the short term was the viability of the proposed project or service and the likely impact of it on its growth and sustainability. So they only allocated for the entirety of Rochester, Minnesota, $100,000. So it was going to
Is
be
that COVID specific, Martha? Or is that just a general program?
No, it was developed in response to COVID, but they were trying to make it as adaptable as possible to all the businesses. So if you wanted to move some sinks and put in touchless faucets, you're fine. If you needed to update your website, you're fine. You know, those type, they were trying to make it as open as possible. And they had a max grant of $2,000. And they required, as I said, they had to partner with another local business.
So those bullet points there on what you sent along, that's all we know as far as how they were gauging applicants?
No, I have the rubric, but I
okay.
didn't include it.
Okay.
Well, you can't see, but here's the rubric. So,
Okay.
So what they would do is they would rate it from 1 to 5 on 10 questions and weight the applications. And they would have multiple people review the applications to ensure fairness across the board.
Well, maybe that's directional for us at least. You know, depending on the questions that were used, some may or may not be applicable to our situation, but maybe that's something we can incorporate.
The town of Greece one, for example, if our goal is to get cash out as soon as possible, we can do that all day long. And we should just, people could just, here's my invoices. And we could get the money out the door. What I'm trying to do is enhance it so we spend it, we build up those that can and spend money wisely. The Greece program is, they have $100,000 for the town of Greece with a maximum award of $5,000. And grant funds are not intended to cover revenue loss or expenses incurred during the shutdown, but they are to cover operating expenses as you restart for insurance, inventory, equipment, etc. You had to document revenue loss resulting from COVID and have a plan for reopening and maintaining employment. They had to file a tax return, as well as documentation of their losses. So they were saying, look at your April 19 revenues versus your April 20 revenues. So.
I hear a lot in that sounds good. There was a mention of insurance, and that kind of aligns with something that was mentioned on the survey. Somebody mentioned that their insurance rates have gone up because of this, some insurance that they had to cover. Greece is a town that's a lot bigger. This is a village. Do we want to, what's the floor and ceiling that we want on the grants, or the ceiling, I guess, might be more than 5,000.
Oh. I think we have to decide what type of grants first.
That's true.
And then we then figure out how much to allocate toward it. Or because are we, I liked how Town of Greece said that we're not replacing lost revenue.
I was surprised they said inventory.
Well, you can imagine if someone didn't have cash, they couldn't replenish their inventory possibly. Yeah, they were for operating expenses. And again, it's curious. You know, when I think inventory here, you know, it's not like we have inventory heavy retailers. You know, I think of inventory of paper goods mostly in the village. And to your point, Kevin, how much in someone's business do we want to be? How much burden do we want to put them on paperwork? You know, them or us. If it's backwards looking, you know, it is just send us your invoices. If it's forward looking, I think Town of Greece and possibly this other program asked just people to certify that that's how they were going to spend the funds. And then I believe Rochester, Minnesota asked people, you know, in 6 months, we're going to check in with you and you agree to provide us an update on your employment and your progress against the plan. And I think it was 6 months, possibly 12-month checkup too, just because they're trying to gauge the success of their program.
And not to mention, they both have large staffs to be able to monitor those kind of things that we don't have. That's going to be difficult for us.
Yes. So let's talk about, Kevin, describe the business that we want to help. How about we do that?
We wanted a business that has and I like the idea of a business plan that is going to be a sustainability plan with some numbers behind it. So a business that is really struggling because this thing has taken away all of their business. They have not had any revenue in a 3-month period and needs now to do some things to readapt to a reopening and to get his customers back. And what can I come up with? What do I need to do this? Is it certain, certain platforms, whether it's social media or whatever? And I like the idea of local partnering. You know, we have lots of firms that do that kind of stuff, you know, to help a business recover. And that's pretty much what I'm looking at. Now, do they still have to be graded? Yeah, I think so. But I'm not looking to throw just money out to everybody. That's not at all what I'm talking about. I don't think anybody in this board is. But, you know, put the money into the hands of the people that need it, are going to use it, and it's going to help them sustain, keep the doors open.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I did include in my write-up is that people that had already adapted and expended their funds to do those things, whether or not we'd include those as eligible for reimbursement as well. You know, some of those businesses have already undertaken that,
right?
And spent their own funds. You know,
in fact, everybody in phase 1, 2, and 3 has done that already. So yeah, those funds are expended.
I'm on board with that because it's that situation too. It kind of removes the question mark as to where it's going to go. It's essentially reimbursing what's already been spent wisely to facilitate opening.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if somebody has been, you know, a lot of these businesses stayed open through the thing, you know, and had, you know, I mean, you could read that in the responses, you know, just the nature of my business, it really didn't affect, you know, me that all that much.
Mhm.
So there shouldn't be a demand, shouldn't be much of a demand from those businesses looking for assistance.
Okay. So reimbursement. So we're back to item 1 that we talked about last month. Presentation of paid invoices. Let me pull up last month's package and so this would be, so I've pulled up last month's package. Eligible expenses, physical barriers, PP&E, sanitizing station, deep clean, POS system, structural modifications, air filtration, employee training, online platforms. So those would be
Insurance is a
eligible.
big one. Donna brought up the insurance, and that is a big one that we did not have included, but there's a lot of people that I'm hearing that, you know, people have to get that or reading, and you know, special insurances they're paying for.
Okay. All right, so I just added that to the list. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I've hit something. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. So if we want to go forward with the reimbursement grants,
That's my thought.
and then we have obviously villages located in the village of Fairport. We have there's profit, non-for-profits. Are those, is it just for-profit events or businesses? I'm thinking of, there are, there's within the box factory, for example, there's the Center for Autism. I don't know that they're, I suspect that they're not for profit, but I'm not sure.
Every not, and yeah, every not-for-profit is struggling huge, you know, I mean, not just Fairport, not just Monroe County, but nationwide, you know, everybody's losing out on their fundraisers and stuff. And I'm not sure in my head if that's the right purpose of our program, you know, to fill in gaps of, well, that's a revenue thing, you know. I don't know. Other thoughts? You know, theirs is more of a loss of revenue problem with, rather than, you know, actual restart up costs that other small businesses might be incurring.
Yeah, I'm torn on that one. I think it's certainly worth supporting when we think about the spectrum of entities that we want in this village, right? And want to support.
Yeah.
For example, like the tool thrift shop.
Yeah.
Wouldn't, in or out, the corner bookstore, in or out. Right?
My immediate thought is in.
Because I see those as retail operations to some, you know, and with air quotes around it, as opposed to a Center for Autism, which is face to face, could be phone. You can't really buy a tool over the phone.
And
It's
often
really a tool
those
shop.
not-for-profits are part of a much larger organization, whether it be national, statewide, or whatever. I don't know what difference, if any, that makes, but you know, they tend to have a larger support group, you know.
Well, I would if they're providing services, like all of those, the three mentioned there, the tool, the book, and well, I don't know about the Center for Autism, but perhaps the Center of Autism does normally have operations where they have therapeutic classes or something, and they have a way to provide those but they just need some special equipment, or I don't know what. So for me, if they're providing, like, it's a nonprofit office that's just there to be a chapter that is doing fundraising, maybe not, but if they're providing a service, I feel like they should be included.
Yeah.
They're, even the bookstore, they were talking about, they don't know how to sanitize books.
All right.
And there's some people that really, a lot of people that like that shop, and the tool shop as well. So
It could be part of the evaluation. If Kevin, I think I did hear, Kevin, you were in favor of evaluating these applications?
Yeah, I mean, because, who was our other ones? The library, the museum, those all fit into that category too, that all serve a benefits. I don't know.
Daycares? I don't know. I mean, there may be people here we don't know about. Like, I didn't know about Center for Autism, but someone mentioned it, and it's, the big draw to well, not big, but it's people that need those services come to the Village of Fairport for those services. And then maybe they do other things here too. So maybe it just becomes part of the evaluation model.
Yeah. I mean, think about what a church has spent, in accommodating, I mean, they have lost revenue as well, but then they have cash outlays that they're having to, to get their people to be able to come back. We have a lot of churches. So yeah, I guess it has to be some level, they are not, we shouldn't disqualify that, I guess. That would.
Maybe we'll just stay mute on that and see what comes in, or stay mute on that. Mute versus moot.
Yeah, I like the idea of the service providing characteristic being important, but that for-profit or nonprofit.
Yeah.
if we have a checkbox for nonprofit, then we could have a checkbox next to it saying, please describe the service that you provide physically in your space or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we have an idea of what funds we want to allocate to this initially?
Well, go back to what you tell us about your reaching out to the Merchants Association that didn't really show much interest. Can you describe how that conversation went, or with whom?
I've reached out and with the results of the survey and spoke with, and we had conference call with the Chamber of Commerce, the partnership, Pam Renfro from the Merchants Association. Doug Sharp was invited, was unable to attend. I have received no inquiries back about the survey or, interest in what our programs are. Based on the conversations we had amongst that group, the merchants are being very circumspect in how they're spending their funds. So.
But they weren't directly asked if this, we didn't have a program together, but to say,
right,
would you be able or willing to partner with us on it? I guess the
right. We didn't make the ask.
I think everybody would still like to see that based on what we talked about last month. So maybe this is a plan that we're doing that we're able to fund to. So again, here to your point, how many dollars we are able and committed to funding to X, and would love to partner with it. And it goes to the board of directors. So board of directors of the partnership. So it makes sure that it gets to a discussion point, and not just one person giving that answer. So.
Maybe
So-
if we think about how much we want to give maximum, then we can back into how much funding we want to seek and how much we can put in for that.
And this money is the money that IDA agreed to contribute, but without a dollar figure.
The IDA agreed to contract with the LDC to provide services in light of COVID, and that we have a maximum contract amount of $150,000.
And when you hear
That's a
what
hefty
Greece,
sum of money.
yeah, and when you hear what the town of Greece and the city of Rochester, Minnesota are allocating for their businesses, you know, I mean, that number is not a reason. Our 150,000 shouldn't be spent, I wouldn't think, on that.
Right. And one of the things I would remind you or mention again, I think I mentioned it last month, is that this is the end of the beginning. This is a long haul we're in for. It's not like when the bridge goes down or goes up or however, you know, when the bridge is back, whew, we're done.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning. So.
One major factor is going to be if we do have a partner in this, right? If we're going to double the amount that we put in or not, right? Assuming we have a partner, if each agency puts in $50,000, then we have a really robust offering. If we only put in 25K and we're not matched at all, and we talk about a 5,000 cap on a grant, we're
Right.
supporting 5 businesses, which isn't no small feat, but in my mind's eye, would like to see more businesses be supported.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd rather see more grants, but smaller grants, so it spreads further and impacts more businesses. You know, is the number 50,000 a shared number, or, you know, versus 50 from us, and, you know, whatever the merchant comes up with.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that Martha's got a good feel
Mhm.
for the way that the merchants are thinking about these things. You know, is it more reasonable to do a 75-25, that we'd be willing to commit 75,000, but just to get them some skin in the game and come in at 25? Is that more sellable, or, I mean, is that what we're looking for, or do we want to, you know, a true 50-50 partnership? Just throwing that out there. So.
One of the things I don't know about the merchants organization is if, you know, part of the reluctance is that they can't give business directly to one individual. You know, that might be part of their bylaws, you know?
I hadn't thought of that.
You know, so maybe that's where partner, but perhaps this would be an allowable use of funds. You know,
Just put them on the review board.
yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's something I can explore. Mm-hmm.
That made me think about criteria. If we want to have a criteria that like limits to businesses that haven't received a PPP loan.
I was wondering about that too, Donna. Yeah.
There's a new program out from New York State. It's a loan fund, not related, but it's, again, they're trying to, for those that didn't get the PPP or idle.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we need to think through that, because let's say that somebody got a PPP loan and use $5,000 of their PPP to pay these invoices that are going to come back to us for reimbursement. Now that isn't right, but I mean,
You've got it all going on, Kev.
it's possible, right? I mean,
Yeah.
No, that makes good sense.
well, I guess that's one of the, you know, who gets money things, and how we look at it, you know, a PPP question or something.
Yep. Mhm.
It doesn't have to be a mandatory criteria. It could be just a, again, check the box and we evaluate it in the,
Yeah, but I don't want to be giving money to somebody that used somebody else's money to pay for what they got anyway,
yeah.
How do we check that? How do we know?
I don't know. You ask them. Did you receive a PPP grant? If so, in what amount?
Well, I guess going to, the 75-25 split, bringing it up to 100,000, is that the appropriate number for the village? Is that, when you think about the fact that Greece across that whole town did 100, I mean, yes, if we have the funds, we should do everything we can to support it. Now, all the different ways to look about that. Do we spend this money now to make sure that we don't lose traction with the businesses we have? At what expense when we have a second surge or everyone shuts down again? Because that's entirely possible too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. But in all reality, if we shut down again, the plexiglass and the point of sale and all those sorts of protective things should have been in place the first time, but it doesn't help with the loss of rent, checks and all those sorts of things.
Yep.
The inability to pay the rent. I don't know.
The thought is
That was not at all helpful.
Not to step on your words, Leslie, if we're able to put in 50 and set the expectation that our partners would at least make the ask that they match that. If we get a no, then we can certainly ask if they could put in half of that amount, right? And we end up with a 75,000 fund. It all goes to kind of where we're going to cap the individual grants, right? But if we're going to cap it at 2,500, for example, that is, I feel like that we, with 75K in the pool, in the funds pool to be allocated out, that could be substantial. The higher that individual cap goes, obviously, I don't know, but hearing what Greece has put up for an area that big or a number of constituents that big, I feel like it likely would be meaningful.
Mhm.
Is 50K too much for us to put in?
I don't think so. I think that Greece is a long way from having anywhere near enough to do what their need will be in the town of Greece. And it's just kind of I almost see it as kind of a token plan. And that they're just
Their funding came from a supplemental fares allocation through the CDBG program.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
And if we start with 50, we can always add more.
Yeah, we've committed, and if we see there's a huge demand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with 50.
Are there
I
other
agree.
partners we could approach to add to that too?
Like the chamber, would that kind of thing be in their wheelhouse?
I'm not tuned in to their financials, so I don't know. I will say though, that the Rochester Chamber likes to direct their own programs. And since chambers are connected here.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to Jimmy, you can feel Jimmy out on what he thinks about that too, so.
Yeah, and I think he would.
Go ahead.
I think he would tell me, because I've heard some, that
Okay.
Mr. Duffy likes to run his own programs.
Okay.
So,
But I don't think that it's realistic that you would get anything from a municipal government to support this.
So if we
So
put
we
in
have
50 and
50
nobody else partners,
we've got $50,000 for reimbursable expenses as outlined last month. It's a village business. Doesn't matter, sole proprietor, LLC, whatever, doesn't matter. We're talking about a max grant of,
We used 5,000 originally, but I think maybe we had in mind more money, and we didn't know for sure if we would have a equal partner in it. So maybe we have to lower that now.
is sales tax is reimbursable?
Huh.
not for the average, not for profit. No. If we lower that amount to 2,500, that allows us to support 20 businesses up, essentially,
Yeah.
if they all go there.
Is that something we can revisit after we have a firm answer in regards to any partners we may have?
I think we need to have, that's a key piece that you need to go to a partner with.
Okay.
And maybe it's a discussion with them though, with your help, we can bump this up or something, but.
Or we leave it as is and create an opportunity to double the number of businesses we can support, right?
Yeah.
But I'm a 2,500 sounds like a meaningful number to me. 2,500 or $3,000 is where I think is where
Yeah.
And I'm pushing for a little higher, so I would push for a 3,000.
I like 3,000.
I like supporting more people, more businesses than less. But
Then put some more money in.
I'll write you a check.
Even if we get 10K then from some other, from another entity, then
Yeah.
we're there, right? We get
Yeah,
to the
and
number.
we honestly don't know what the demand is going to be. If you took out people that got PPP, did we, Martha, what did we get for feedback on how many people got PPP? Was that
30.
quantified?
4, I think it was, one moment, please. I believe. Oh, business survey, if we go to page. If you go to page 20 of the loan pack, it looks like 32 received, or I'm sorry, if you were approved, oops, wait a minute. Did you apply for SBA, the PPP 35, the idle loan 24. And I don't know if those are, they could be, the same, some of those could be the same individuals.
Right. And was applied for and received the same? Because I saw some of the comments, we don't know yet even, you know.
Yes, so it was, but if you look on the next question, if you were approved for them, do you intend to use them? And 32 said yes.
Okay, that's the key number then.
Yeah, so 32
And-
businesses cannot apply. And
And
we know
that's-
who those are,
That's of the 58 total, correct?
correct?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a big portion of the total response you got.
So yeah, so that goes to the demand question. We don't know how big, you know, it's gonna be and how many people are gonna qualify and
Mhm. Mhm.
so we have flexibility because we still have more funds available to us to use
Right,
if we want to reevaluate.
okay, so funded up to 50,000 initially and ask a partner to join us to double that or to contribute. Reimbursement grants on paid invoices.
Going back to March 15th,
Okay, up to 2,500. And it's only for businesses that did not receive the SBA funds.
we were voting for
We
3,000.
were at,
Oh,
I thought
3,000?
we were at 3,000.
Okay. So really, what is it? Then they just, it's an application and some invoices, or what other information?
Application invoice and, you know, and a business model, or I don't know what the best term to call it. Business readaptive use plan or something, or where this money
A
where
narrative.
it's going and for what reason and what it's going to gain them.
Yep, so it's a narrative, kind of.
Yeah, but not
Okay,
an essay.
yeah.
This is not dollars for scholars. We don't need to.
No,
Oh,
that
and-
strategic plan, right?
And
The-
actually, this is the anniversary for Donna. Donna passed a year ago today,
Today? Oh, gosh.
Oh,
so. Shout out to Donna. And then do we want it to be a competitive process in a review situation? Or do you just check the box and they're a business, they've got the invoices, what they've said makes sense?
I think that I think it should be somewhat, I don't know if I'm gonna call it competitive, but it's a screening anyway. You know, for red flags kind of stuff that, you know, whether it's PPP or whatever, you know, some sort of screening of the applications as they come in. So there has to be a process, you know, is this what this person is saying or asking for, is this reasonable? And is it going to really benefit? But now how's the best way to do that? I don't think that you need a board to the extent that you were talking about there. And if we're non-partnering, you know, are we going to make those decisions unilaterally by OSED?
Well, the good thing is this is
I guess I'm okay with
reimbursement.
that if we do that.
So it is reimbursement. So in theory, you know, if we open these up July 1, we could consider the applications at the July meeting,
Yeah.
make the checks after that. But what's the criteria? I think we should be transparent on what the criteria is. And maybe we use that rubric, some form of that rubric thing to do our evaluation. Or am I over processing this?
No, you said that it's got to be transparent, and it does. So we're not just giving away money to our favorites or something like that.
Well, We wouldn't, of course, but we want
No,
to
we
be,
wouldn't,
we
but
want to be,
but you-
we want to demonstrate that, I think, and
Yes,
have it stand up. And so when you disclose the criteria up front as part of the application, they understand, you know, because if we're oversubscribed, we will have to score the applications and then, you know, either not fully fund some of them. That could be an option as well. But again, I think that criteria, that rubric thing will help us
yes.
through that, just like, you know, when we did the RFP and look where we ended up, so. For legal.
Well, one of the things with, you know, I mean, let's start a July 1st target date to roll this out. And what I would ask our board in the meantime, Martha's going to be throwing stuff at us as far as questions and drafts and Rubik's cubes or whatever you said that was, and all of that stuff. And I would ask the board to get back with her with our thoughts and comments. You know, even if we had to have a special meeting by Zoom or something like that to put finishing touches on it, but she's going to need to hear from us to, you know, to weigh this thing goes. It's a big deal. I mean, this is you know, it's new to everybody. You know, people are going to be sitting around in California talking, well, this is what Fairport, New York did. Well, maybe they won't, but the same idea. You know, I mean, we're looking at Greece and Minnesota. We could be a template for another program. So we want to do it right, and we need our full board's input. So I would just ask everybody to help with that. And Martha, as you think of other questions, you know, bang them out. You don't have to worry about a weekly report. Just bang out notes. And if you hear from somebody, great. If not, you'll hear from me. So.
Okay. Very good. Very good.
One of those along those lines too, Martha, is like with the narrative piece, right? I'm picturing, I haven't put eyes on that rubric besides what you said, but the you know, the strength of the strategic plan in my mind is kind of a strategic plan as opposed to a narrative. But just an example, that as one line item on that, there's going to be, you know, extremely strong, right, lacking potentially. And if we have 5 or 6 different line items where we can evaluate, I think that gets us right where we need to be with something.
So kind of a directed narrative. You need to answer these questions.
There you go.
And part of that narrative is going to be in the past tense, you know, because if people have invoices, they're just going to roll out to you. Is I had to do this to do this, right? This was necessary for me to take that next step. So.
Yep. Good. Okay. Good discussion.
Very good discussion. Thank you all.
Yeah.
We're hitting our 2-hour limit, so we got to.
Okay.
Did we cover the Lift Bridge Impact Fund update?
No, what I wanted to show you is where we are currently to date. Because in my mind, we're essentially tapped out on that. You've got a report that shows you what we spent in 2019 and what we spent so far. We anticipate, we have just engaged Avery to update the billboards, and I've included the update for your perusal. And then the goal might be to have some type of ribbon cutting at the Southwest Bank in August. And then also I have another press conference type thing, or I'm sorry, then one more billboard update in September-ish for the fall. And then when the bridge comes down, about, you know, I've set aside $7,500 for a press conference like we did when it went up. So you can see at the end, out of the $150,000 that the board has invested, we're down to about 5,000. So that really, we've got it covered. I think I opted not to renew the brochures at this time. You know, we had just printed them in February. We'll see how how that goes, as the year goes on. So, so that's an update on the budget on the lift bridge. And
Alright.
then that's the up on the billboard that's going to be updated. I asked him to include the farmers market, shop local, the canal, and a little bit of gentle reminders about social distance.
Okay. Other old business was a Colonial Bell, and we had discussed an offer that we would make, and has that gone anywhere?
I was going to do that in our executive session.
Got it. Okay. Oh, okay, yes, I see that we have a loan proposal. All right. Any other old or new business for LDC?
Well, I did have a conversation with two people, the director or the manager of Monroe County Planning, and a planner there as well. And we're talking about possibly getting a countywide coalition, or that's a strong word. But in 1993, there was a county level Erie Canal Corridor plan. And I really, looking back at what happened with, whether or not the canal was going to be filled and so forth, the goal was to get as many voices as possible heard and state our case about why the canal was important to us at the local level. But there are throughout the county other villages and towns that the canal is an important part of. And if we can come together with a master plan or some update to it, then you have a county level initiative. So we just had exploratory conversations, talked about possibly doing having the county do a CFA application for that. So it's just early stages, but it's again, stuff that elevates our profile here. Because it's always funny to me that when I go to these canal conference events, you don't see anybody else there. It's us, it's pretty much us in Lockport that show up.
Yeah.
So, at a very local level. So there's, Pittsburgh is, for example, is never seen at those events. So, but it's something I'm exploring. So I just wanted to mention that. But it would be, no work on our part at this. I'm just kind of facilitating the conversation and trying to help it move forward. So.
Okay. Nothing else. I'll entertain a motion to enter into an executive session to discuss the financial and credit history of a particular person or corporation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No one. We're now entering executive session.
All right, let me stop the live stream, please.